Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ultimate Manifestation Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Robert Grant, a.k.a. Reverend Sean Robert Grant. In these parts, welcome to the Ultimate Manifestation Podcast once again, where we give you insight, divine wisdom, knowledge, insight, and understanding. I said insight 3 times. To manifest the life of your dreams in whatever area it may be, whether it be wealth, whether it be career, whether it be relationships, whether it be mindset, peace of mind, everything, you name it, we got it. It's exciting to think that we're going to do more of that, of those other areas, because we've been specifically focused on money for the most part. But I, including with today's episode, I'm going to dive more into that. So give me 1 second. All right. Just to be authentic with you, my cat was sitting in the room and he decided that he wanted to get out, so I had to let him out. But I am back here and ready to go. So as I was saying, today's episode is going to surround Soulmate. And you may know this specifically as SP, which is specific person. But my objective today is just to get you to a space, if you're not there yet, to basically be vibrating and resonating with the energy that will allow your soulmate to manifest in your life. But before I get into that, I just want to throw this out real quick, some business. Guys, if you have any any feedback, any comments, anything, any type of correspondence, please, by all means, contact us at shaung04@gmail.com. And we will get with you as soon as we can, answering those questions. Thank you so much for all of you tuning in from all over the world. And I hope you are doing fantastic at this moment. Now let's get into our episode. So we talked about soulmate. We talked about the term is used SP in the New Age metaphysical law of attraction community. But I'm going to use soulmate. And the reason I say soulmate is because that's what resonates the most with me, and we're going to get right into it. So when we think of soulmate, sometimes it can be a loaded word. And when I mean loaded, I mean emotionally loaded, because depending on how you grew up and what type of relationships you observed in your lifetime, especially in the early years, that's going to determine how easy or how difficult you believe off the bat it is to find that person, that special person in your life, whoever it is that they may be. So our first impression of our relationships goes to our parents, and then our relatives, our friends' parents, the type of relationships we see, teachers and administrators have. Like, all these adults surrounding us are teaching us inadvertently about, or indirectly, about relationships and how they deal with each other, how they communicate with each other, how they show up for each other is really going to determine how your relationships unfold as the years go along, right? So I'll give you, before I get into this, these different steps and methods that we can use. My relationships were marred by emotional unavailability. And the reason being is because I had a father who was emotionally unavailable most of the time, which caused my mom to be emotionally unavailable. And these were two people, love them so much, that would go 2-3 weeks without talking to each other, sometimes even up to a month without talking to each other, being in the same house. Now, I mentioned communication. Communication was not there, right? I mentioned being able to have someone who could be there for you, who you can trust. That was broken over a long period of time. Now, most people think, that's all to blame on them. But no, there's no such thing as blame. It's just the fact that you are only going to practice the relationships the relationship attributes that you have been given from your guardians. That's all it is. And it goes that way with relationships. It goes that way with money. It goes that way with your career. It goes that way with your self-esteem. You're only going to produce what you've been given until you get to a place of consciousness where you can change it. So it's no surprise the first relationship I had was with an extraordinarily emotionally unavailable person. And then it just repeated and repeated and repeated till I got to a point where I said, you know what? There's something not right about this. And so I had to take a step back, and I'm just like, okay, well, what type of relationships have I been exposed to? Like, what is it? What example have I been given? And I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to call anybody out, but was given the worst possible example of what a relationship should be. Now, that's not to blame them, but the fact of the matter is, if you grow up a certain way and all you see is bad relationships and you don't do anything to change it, you're going to wind up in a bad relationship yourself. And for me, the very threat of that made me think and feel and go as deep as possible within my own soul to make sure that wasn't going to happen and unfold, because it can happen, and it can happen to anybody. It's just we are the products of our own programming until we decide to get the courage and the wisdom and knowledge from within to change it. Okay? And change it is what I did. I'm happily married. I've been with my wife, my soulmate, for coming up on, it will be 13 years in September. We've been married. We'll be 12 years in December. Very happily married. And, you know, she's my best friend, my soulmate, my everything. And that could only come when I decided from within who I was going to be first and foremost and what I was going to allow into my life. And you can do the exact same thing no matter where you are. There's a chance that you could be with the wrong person right now, and you're looking for that someone who you feel like is going to be your soulmate. You could be single, and all those things are wonderful, because the reality is it's never too late for love, no matter where you are. And that's a powerful statement, because the reality is, once we know everything on the outside reflects what's on the inside, that's when we start diving into what is on the inside of us. And that's the number one thing you've got to understand when you start to decide that you want to allow your soulmate into your life. You got to ask yourself the question, guys, am I the person that I would want to spend the rest of my life with? And this is where you get really honest, right? If you're a bit of a shithead, you know, then you got to be honest about that so you can change it. You can sort of transform the ideas, or not the ideas, but the attributes that make up the vibration of who you are. Because I'm going to tell you, you're only going to manifest who you are at the core of your soul, right? So if you're loving, you're kind, you're compassionate, you know, you're generous, you're an overall person who takes into consideration of others, I can guarantee you're going to find somebody exactly like that at the core. Maybe not as completely identical and similar, but at the core of who they are, you're going to find somebody like that. But you have to have those attributes at the core of your being in order to find someone like that. Because the reality is, the problem comes in is because most people think you manifest your soulmate by luck. Like all of a sudden they just drop out of the sky. But the reality is there's I say that twice. The reality is there's no time limit. You just have to become the energy of who and what you want to manifest. And that relies on you. And that can happen in 2 years. That can happen in 5 years. It can happen in 10 years. It could take 50 years. But it's all up to you to decide, right? So the one thing you want to get away from is being too caught up on what the outside would look like. And I'm not saying that, you know, you can't manifest someone who's beautiful, but that's great, you know, and I agree with that. But you want someone who's just as beautiful on the inside, first and foremost. You see, it's those inner intangible qualities that matter the most, not the ones on the outside, because I can tell you that if you measure a relationship by what someone has on the outside, it won't last. And if it does last, it will be a shell of a relationship, because relationships can't build on outside stuff. You know, I think one of the most beautiful things with my relationship is that I was like, I was broke when we were getting married. I didn't have any money whatsoever, yet because all of the intangibles were there, because of all the amazing stuff that I brought to the table from an emotional standpoint and spiritual standpoint were there, I was a shoo-in. It was a no-brainer, right? So people will a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times get caught up in, oh, well, he has to have a good job. Oh, she's got to have a certain type of car. Oh, she's got to live in a certain place, or, you know, throw all that stuff out the window, right? Because all that does is take away from the true essence of the person you really want to manifest. And I'll tell you this, I believe with every fiber of my being that the divine has granted us the ability to share our life with someone who complements us, who is compatible. And sometimes compatible is not what you always want, but it's exactly what you need in order to progress and evolve and be the highest version of yourself, realize the highest potential. And that's what counts, you know? So becoming the vibration of who and what we want to manifest. And that's easy. You know, one thing I used to coach a lot with this, a lot of people, and the one thing I would have them do is write down 50 different attributes, characteristics of the person that they wanted to manifest, but it was intangible. And see, the reason why I did intangible, because anybody can say, oh, I want somebody who's cute. You know, I want somebody who has curly hair. I want somebody who's from this country. You know, all that stuff, it doesn't really matter. But when you write down the inner qualities, all of a sudden it creates a feeling, which then creates a vibration, which then creates the formulation of this, because it's starting to build steam within your own consciousness. But so I would have them write it down, and then I would have them say an affirmation: I am kind, I am compassionate, I am generous, I am supremely loving, right? And I would tell them, you have to make it a priority for you to become these things, these attributes. Until you know without a doubt you can become these attributes, you don't want to manifest anybody into your life that does not align with those, especially when you've been able to embody that energy. Because see, the thing is you just can't show up to a relationship and think it's going to work if you hadn't done any work on yourself. It's going to fail miserably. That's why you see so much divorce. People get afraid. People become afraid of the numbers that they hear about divorce. But the reality is, you got two people that are doing no work on themselves and are expecting someone else to just show up in a relationship and be everything to them. That's not relationship. That's not marriage. That's slavery, right? Why would I show up to be in a relationship where I did everything for somebody else and they just did nothing, and I was just up on the shelf for them to use whenever they wanted? No, it's two people coming together and to help each other to be the best version of themselves. And that can't happen unless they're working on being the best version of themselves before they enter the relationship. You got to do that. And I promise you, if you do that, your relationship has a greater chance of sustaining itself over time than it would if you weren't doing these things, if you weren't embodying that big 50, as I call it. This is so important because, to me, if you're going into something and you're not ready, a lot of times I've seen in my own experience, not my own relationships, but in other people's experiences, they find the right person, but then they lose it because they're just not carrying the vibration of the individual that they wanted. So all of a sudden, the relationship falls apart, and you had a powerful opportunity to capitalize on finding your soulmate and being with your soulmate. But it didn't work out because they just weren't ready. They just weren't ready vibrationally. And you see that unfold all the time. Now, if this person is really meant for you, a lot of times they will come back around and it'll work itself out because the universe makes sure that, you get exactly what's meant for you. But then at other times, maybe it's not your soulmate, but it's the person that helps you to get your stuff together. And once you get yourself together, then you can be ready to welcome in and allow that relationship. Okay. So remembering, you got to become the vibration of who and what you want to manifest in your life. The second part is this, and people have disagreed with me. I think I had somebody on Medium cuss me out, but I'm telling you, this is my opinion. And the reason I stand by this opinion is because I am well aware and well versed at how energy and vibration operates. Okay. Now, when we come into contact with somebody, and let's say we even start having an emotional, a physical, a spiritual relationship with this person, that energy begins to entangle with our energy. Their vibration becomes our vibration. Why? Because one vibration and a second vibration come together and create a totally different vibration. This is why you may feel differently when you're with certain people as opposed to when you're by yourself or with other people. It's just universal nature, right? It's the nature of energy. So what I recommend doing is not dating if you're seriously thinking about or moving towards where you want to meet your soulmate. And here's why I say that. Because most people who date wind up building energy with a second person or another person, not a second person. And so what this energy does is that it can, in a lot of ways, distort the energy that will take you directly to your soulmate, directly to the manifestation of your soul, right? Now, the reason that it's such an integral part of this whole process to do this is because the greater the energy builds towards that person that's meant for you, the easier it's going to be to manifest. See what I'm saying? Now, if you're just dating somebody and it's a completely physical relationship and you're building soul ties by having a sexual relationship with them, that's going to distort the energy. And then all of a sudden you might be pushing yourself back, because here's the thing. Those relationships, they end up not working out at all. All they do is just they last for a certain time and then they dissipate, and then there's all these unprocessed emotions and unprocessed feelings towards these two people because they shared something sacred. And now you've just set yourself back, as opposed to meeting that person in 6 months. Now you got to wait 1.5 years because you're processing what has gone on with this physical, possibly sexual, emotional relationship that you've embarked upon before you've reached a soulmate. Now, we can agree to disagree, and people have disagreed with me with this, but this is something that I use and something that I just completely and utterly feel that without a shadow of a doubt, it's the way to go. And another thing is, and the most important aspect of it is, you get to focus on yourself and your own energy. And that energy says, who am I? Right? Not who am I with this person? Who am I sleeping with that person? Who am I with? No, who am I? Right? Who can I be? What can I do to completely come into vibrational compatibility with the person that I choose to call my soulmate, that I know is manifesting in my life right now? It changes everything, right? And you just don't want to mess that up. I'll give you an example of what this is like. And this is a really good example. Imagine saving up to buy your favorite car. Okay. Saving up to buy your favorite car. And then right when you get to, let's say you're going to buy Chevy Corvette. That's one of my favorite cars, right? Brand new Chevy Corvette. Okay. Those, the really nice ones will be, we can say 69,000, I think is the MSRP. And then if you really get the package, do it up right, be about 80 something thousand dollars. Let's say you get to like $60,000, right? And you all of a sudden, you're that close to your goal, 60,000. And then you decide you're going to buy a car of lesser value. Okay. Not saying that an individual is of lesser value, but in a way they are, because that's not the person for you. So all of a sudden you go buy a car that's worth 30,000. Now you're 30,000 short of reaching the car that was meant for you. That's how the relationships work, right? And by using the energy on someone that's not truly meant for you, you set yourself back. Now, as far as the Corvette goes, 30,000, boom, all of a sudden you go from getting your car in 3 months to now, depending on your financial situation, could take 6, 9, 12 months, a year and a half, whatever it is, to almost just being right there at that point. Okay. Right there at that point where you're about to receive that special person into your life, that special thing into your life. Yet, because you started dating, because you started messing around and sleeping around, all of a sudden it distorts your energy. It distorts your energy. And then all of a sudden you slow down the manifestation. And that's what vibration does. I'm going to tell you, I believe you're going to get there anyway. But how fast you get there is completely contingent upon you and the vibration you give. And you want to give the fastest vibration that you possibly can, the highest vibration you can, because you want the soulmate to come now. You want it to come sooner rather than later. You see what I'm saying? So it's important to know. And like I said, that's not for everybody. But if you have the discipline, if you have the commitment and the conviction to do that, I promise you it'll benefit you so much. It'll benefit you like you never could even thought of, because then with that type of clarity and that type of uninhibited, untampered with energy, man, like you just become a force. You become a force of love. And that's a beautiful thing. So moving along. So we just talked about two pivotal aspects of manifesting your soulmate, and, using the big 50 with one becoming the vibration of who and what you want to manifest. And then also choosing to focus more on yourself and not dating just to be able to develop that energy to a higher level. Now, the next one is one that people really sort of don't get in a lot of ways. I think they get it, but they don't understand it. Okay. And I'm going to break this down for you like this. You have no control over anything in life and how it manifests. Okay. You have no control. And I say this from experience, because I can remember being 25, 26 years old, wanting so much to be married, to be in a full-time, long-term relationship. And notice I didn't meet my wife until I was, I want to say 2 weeks before my 30th birthday. Now, you may be like, what? I got to wait 5 years? Not necessarily. But the reality was, I just wasn't ready. If I was ready, and then also the other person had to be ready. So the universe is cooperating events in people's lives to make sure that this happens at the perfect time for each of them embarking upon being in that relationship. So the thing I want to tell you right now is that you got to be patient. Okay? You've got to be patient, and you've got to remind yourself as much as possible what you're moving towards, because that way you won't get discouraged. That way you don't do anything stupid. That way you don't put yourself in a position where you can kind of distort this beautiful thing that's ready and just finally excited about manifesting in your life. You see, you have to be patient because there's more things, people, and circumstances involved in this thing other than just you. And I know as human beings, we have the tendency to just think about ourselves, but we have to think about how things have to move. Okay. So in my own experience, my wife was in a relationship. I was living in New Orleans, right? She was in Los Angeles. I had to move to Los Angeles first in order for this to unfold and happen, right? So that was just three variables. There were so many different variables when we look back as to how could this all come together. Another thing is I wasn't at the job yet that I wound up meeting her, right? I had to get to that job. I had to get to a place where I thrived in that job in order to be promoted to move to the location where I was going to meet her at. Now, that's enough. Just those small characteristics is enough to make your head explode, right? But the reality is you don't have to worry about it. You just have to trust and be patient. And when you look back, right? When you look back, you get to see how all of that came together and how intelligent and infallible the universe worked it out. It is just mind-blowing to see that. And that's how you're rewarded, with that patience. When you are patient, completely patient, and you allow these things to happen and you don't try to rush them and you don't try to manipulate and you don't try to underhand the universe and barter and say, oh, I'm going to do this if you give me this. You know, I tried all of it, but you can't do that. You just got to be patient and you got to allow it to come together. When it comes together, it's the most beautiful expression of life, I can promise you. And it's worth it, whether you're 20, 40, 60, 50, 80, whatever it is. Be patient enough to wait and allow it to unfold, because I'm going to tell you, when it's right and it's on point and it's of a divine nature and it's on a soul level, it is going to thrive and it's going to help you to thrive. I can promise you that. So moving into the last point, because we could talk about this all day and we will come back and discuss more in future episodes. But the last thing I want to give to you is this. Believe that it's possible, right? You could have had the worst possible luck with relationships, with the idea of being married, with the idea of spending the rest of your life with somebody, you know, who loves you equally or maybe even more. But the reality is, whatever you got within you, believe. Believe that it's possible, that this can happen. Believe that you have everything that it takes within you, because you do, to make this happen. Believe that there is someone out there for you that's going to help you to grow, that's going to help you to be your best, that's going to help you to rise up and just be the very ultimate version of yourself, because you are loved, because you love them, because your love comes together and creates something beautiful. Believe you are worthy of that. And if you don't believe you're worthy of it, start doing everything possible to believe that you are worthy. Because I'm going to promise you something. The more you do that, the greater this thing gets. The more you do that, if you're not in it yet, the faster it manifests. The more you do that, the more you will find yourself in love, in this thing called love. I can promise you, and I can promise you from experience, commit in every single possible way to believing that this thing has already happened, that this thing is true, that it is for you and you are ready and excited to receive it, to receive this love that's already inside of you, waiting to be expressed, waiting to manifest itself. If you can believe, sky's not even the limit. The relationship, the soulmate that will enter your life will be better and greater than you could have ever imagined. And yes, there will be challenging times, but through those challenges, when you overcome them and you move through them together, your bond will grow tighter. Your love will grow more expansive. And you will find, and this is the best part, you will find that you're ready for anything that comes. You're ready to continually grow. You're ready to continually open up. And you begin to understand, because of this person, I am the very best that I can be. And that's not going to stop now. That's going to be present for the rest of our lives, and vice versa with them. And it is a beautiful thing. And this is what really finding your soulmate is all about. Isn't that beautiful? So much so. All right, guys, that wraps up today's message. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a special episode for me, reliving a lot of those things that I had the pleasure and the fortune to experience. And I know it's out there for you too. But if you have any questions, any comment, any feedback, please, by all means, write to us, SeanG04@gmail.com, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you again for tuning in all around the world. Please, by all means, share this podcast with people that can use it. It's on 8 different platforms, as well as on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Sean Grant. SGrant28 is the tag. And that wraps up our message for today, our episode. But we will be back. I hit the mic by accident. We will be back here soon with some more valuable insight, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to give to you. So from that point on, enjoy your day, enjoy your evening, enjoy your night, wherever you are. We will talk soon. Take care. Bye-bye.